All right, guys, welcome back to the workbench. I'm Bobby Harris. Hey, glad you could join me today. We're continuing with another part of our build on the Forever gun. And this is my Winchester 308. I'm sorry, not Winchester, but it's the 308 Winchester, but it's a Remington 700. And as I've said in the previous videos, I've had a lot of work done to this. You can kind of see where we're at now. We've got everything Cerakoted. It's all put back together, but it's getting ready to come back apart. I've had all this fluting done, and like I was showing you earlier, I mean, Long Rifles Incorporated machined a thread protector to go on here that's really sweet. It closes up really, really nice, so hopefully you're getting a good look at that. You can barely see the seam at all where it's there. A lot of cosmetic work, like the bolt fluting and things like that, but they did take 6 inches off the end of this bull barrel and got it cut down to a 20-inch barrel. And that's what I was looking for a suppressed gun. And so that's kind of where we're at. I've got all my metal Cerakoted and all of that. I'm getting ready to do some work on the stock though. What we're going to do here is we're going to do an epoxy bed on the stock right now. And so this is going to take a few minutes, so I'm going to try to move fast, but we'll get everything back together here real quick. In this process, the epoxy build is really the last thing I'm going to do before I go on to the hydro dip. And I'm going to do a hydro dip and a Kuyu Vias, I believe is how you say it, camouflage. So nonetheless, I'm glad you're here along with me, and get ready here because I'm going to set the phone down and start taking this back apart. So I'll set it over here. We'll do the best we can to kind of go through this together here. I got my Wheeler Fat Wrench with everything on it, and we'll get the gun going here. I just wanted to fit everything up to make sure everything was fine. I've got everything actually torqued right, and all my clearances are good. So I'm going to go ahead and take this back apart. I'd really, I know this is an aluminum bedded gun, but even with aluminum bedding, I prefer to do an epoxy skim coat just because I feel like it's kind of locks everything up a little bit tighter, and it's a little more consistent. And so given that, that's what I prefer. So let's see what we can do here. Get our trigger guard off, and the rest of it should just come out. All right. So, like I showed you in the last video, I got the Trigger Tech primary in. Everything's looking good with that. So I'm going to go ahead and start getting some wax on everything. Now, what I like to use is this Carnauba wax, just a straight car wax. And then I'm going to be using some JB Weld epoxy, but you'll see it says it has steel filler in it. They've made some before. I've used DevCon. That's a good one too. But either the JB Weld or the DevCon, both work fine. And so what I want to do though is I want to get this wax on here. I'm going to do a kind of a twofold thing here. I've also tried this using just rim oil sprayed on the gun, and that actually worked fine too. But I'm going to do a little bit of a belt and suspenders on this one, and I'm going to put on the Carnauba wax along with a little bit of rim oil on top of it. So actually what I'm doing is just I'm waxing all the surfaces that potentially could see a little bit of bleed over of the epoxy whenever it goes together. And I definitely want to get the barrel lug very well, all aspects of the barrel lug, and around these bolt holes good. Had to get out 2 or 3 of these Q-tips because we're probably going to go through a number of them before we get wax smeared on everything that we want. But basically I'm going to get it smeared to where, it would be even with the stock itself. Let's see, I'm going to put some on this mag well just in case it bleeds over. I don't want to get anything anywhere it shouldn't be. All right, I'm gonna grab the other side of this Q-tip. I want to do real well back here around this bolt hole as well on the very back end. I apologize, I'm having to film everything with my phone because I don't have a GoPro. But I want to put a little bit of epoxy on this back end back here, so I definitely want wax back here as well. And I'm going to roll a little bit to the front edge just in case it just squeezes over the top. I'm going to try to clean it up, but I've found that sometimes when you just clean it up, it still leaves a little rim or edge there. So put wax anywhere you think you may need it, because this stuff will creep wherever it wants to go. I mainly leave the magwell in just to kind of protect the bolt so it doesn't bleed over onto the bolt. I guess you could take the magwell out and do just as good, but like I said, we're going to do some belt and suspenders and spray over the top of this with a little bit of rim oil as well right before we shove it in the stock. But right now, the wax is fine. I'm going to wax these bolts. Wax them up good. Get bolt wax in the threads all down the bolt itself, you know. So I'm going to put it in there and just rub it in real well. The last thing you want is this epoxy to grab a hold of anything other than wax, or where you want it. I mean, naturally you want it to grab a hold of the stock, but nonetheless, put a little on here. And by the way, guys, I don't have a clue at this point. I know you've probably seen a few of these videos, but I don't have a clue at this point what I'm naming this channel. I've been thinking about it all day as I've been doing some of this work and just talking to myself in the shop. And I don't know what I'm going to name this channel yet, but in fact, I'm going to throw that away. Okay, I got the screws waxed up. Get some of this off my fingers a little bit. I'm going to put the wax away and then mix up this JB weld. Like I said, I'm just using this. It's got a nice little quarter twist top, quarter twist, and then pulls off, which I think is a really good design. And before I do that, I'm just going to take some, I've got a big bottle of alcohol I use here, but I'm going to take some of this alcohol and I'm going to clean the inside of that stock. I'll get it where, hopefully I can get it degreased, but here's what I'm going to be cleaning. See this area here? This is the lug area, and this aluminum area right here. I may take a Q-tip and also clean the clean down in the lug area, but I want to just wipe this off to make sure, get all that crap off of there. Wipe it off, make sure there's no nothing else on there that's going to do anything. So I'm going to grab a fresh Q-tip here and I'll get this set back up, but I'm going to take and saturate it as well. And I'll swab out the lug area. Now, some of these come with an oversized lug area, expecting that you're going to do all this, that you're going to epoxy bed. So, you know, there's a lot of guns out there. I did one the other day, and it had a Bell & Carlson stock on it. Guy brought it to me, and he's like, hey, can you epoxy bed this for me, you know? Well, I thought, sure, no problem. I don't know what could be too wrong with a Bell & Carlson stock, but let's take a look at it. As I went through the process of taking it apart, I realized the lug valley was so oversized, and they probably did that on purpose, just because they wanted to give you enough room to get epoxy in there and do everything you should do to do that correctly. Now, this is pretty neat. There's little tabs inside there that fit right inside here, so hopefully it doesn't allow this stuff to run, because I didn't use very much. I mean, I've got about that much on here. So we'll see how well this goes. But anyway, given that, I had to put a lot of epoxy in that void to fill it up. But it turned out great. And, you know, if I figure out how, I'll post a little picture of it, edit it into this video here. But nonetheless, I did take a photograph of it and it turned out good. But what surprised me, though, was just the fact that they must have went through the process of saying, well, we expect them to epoxy bed, and it actually took up a whole lot of room. I'm sorry, they left a whole lot of room in there. So anyway, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to feed some of this in here, then I'll grab the phone and show you what I did. But as I talk through this, I'm going to drop some down into the barrel lug area and just kind of coat the bottom there real well and coat up the sides just to kind of smear it in, get everything set.
Are you talking to somebody?
I'm on video. And then I'll put a little bit on the aluminum that I showed you in that bedding area. I'll put it on both sides, all the way around the hole. And this turned out a little bit thinner than I expect. I usually have it thicker than this, but I will kind of build it up just a little bit. So it's got room to kind of squeeze and flow on its own. I'll put a little bit more in the lug area just for the same reason, so it's got room to squeeze and flow. I would much rather it kind of squeeze out, and I'll deal with it later if I have to trim some of it off or whatever, but it gives a good tight seal. So put a little bit back here around the back and get it coated up good, mainly just to give a good seating surface back here. I'll take Q-tips and kind of clean out whatever squeezes out as we go here. But like I said, here's kind of what it looks like in the meantime. It's kind of a mess right now, and will squeeze out to be a little bit of a mess, but I will clean it up as we go here. So nonetheless, I'm going to take my rim oil. Oh, here it is. And I'm going to spray everything that I just coated here, especially my trigger. Now, hopefully you can see this. I've got a coating of wax and a coating of rim oil. Probably overkill, but you see how much epoxy I have in there. I do not want any of that to grab my surface and, you know, try to pull my Cerakote off, or worse, not be able to get the gun apart. So I'll go back together with this carefully as I can to not smear that everywhere. All right, so that's somewhat back together. I'm going to put all this back on as we go here, and then I'm going to torque everything. Grab your screws that you've waxed good. I'm probably not going to put any rim oil on those, and start sucking this down. Now, I'm not going to go to a full 40 pounds of torque on this, but I am going to torque it. And I want to get it to probably around 25 pounds, 30 pounds maybe. And we'll see what squeezes out then. because I'll have a lot of cleanup to do. I can already tell the back is going to be a mess, but sorry, let me get this back down right. Readjust my fat wrench. And I'll torque it. All right, that's torque at 25 pounds. But like I said, you can kind of see I've got some little over travel there. Some of the rim oil's running out. That's fine. The front looks pretty good, so we'll just have to see what that looks like tomorrow. But I'm gonna take some Q-tips, clean up this back, and we'll come back and look at it tomorrow. Thanks.